Hi, Mark here from the Tangent-Bound Podcast Network and host of the flagship show, the Tangent-Bound Podcast. Did you know that we over at Tangent-Bound are always looking for amazing podcasts to promote? And did you also know that we are also proud nerds and geeks of everything from movies, music, gaming, TV shows, and comic books, to wrestling, MMA, soccer, and football? Whatever you can nerd or geek out about, we've got it. And if you're interested, we can help you find it. And if you're a show looking for a place to call home, we've got you covered. Side effects may include upset stomach, dizziness, tumors, shakes, and in some rare cases, death from excessive laughter. Though to be fair, it's only sometimes. Other side effects may include diarrhea, gallstones, heart palpitations, and strong desire for cookies on the dark side. Talk to your doctor and visit TangentBoundNetwork.com and see if Tangent-Bound Network is right for you.
Life sucks to the last drop. Are you gonna blow your head off? Take good aim and don't forget to duck. Life sucks every Monday and all the way to Sunday, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't care how you're doing, what's up or how's it hanging. I'd like to buy this world one last drink. Life sucks all of the time, so stick it up your sunshine, and then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day.
Hey everybody, welcome to a new Crazy Life. This week, a little different. We have something to, talk about here in a minute. But for now, I'm Brian. Joining me as usual, Heno.
Hey.
And also joining us this week, Kiki.
Hi.
So
It's been a minute.
welcome back. Yeah, I was going to say you've been on before, I believe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I was like, my memory's
Couple
garbage.
different times.
Yeah, I thought I was
so-
like my memory's garbage, so I don't even remember if Heno's been on before. I think this is my first
I
episode.
can understand that.
Yeah. But no, I want to get to the tip of it here. It's just Jen has let us know that she's going to take a step away from the podcast, and I don't know for sure if it's permanent or not, but she's going on hiatus, I guess we'll say. Or as I've always thought, it should be more like hiatus because you're leaving, but, hiatus
no,
is
no,
like,
I like
I'm back.
that
Also, hiatus, when you break it down, is hi at us.
It's true.
So, like, why when you're leaving would you? I don't know. Anyway, enough of that. But
Wow.
anyways, so no Jen coming up. So if Jen was your favorite of the group of us, sounds like you're out of luck. But no, she knows that anytime she's welcome back and whatever. So most any hard feelings will be kept for personal texts, not on the show. I promised I would keep this very professional. No, I'm kidding. There's no. I did the same thing, I think, when Tate left Salty Language.
Did
to,
you?
To where I was kind of like, like finally that jerk is gone kind of a thing. Like I didn't bring her in, So, actually, I mean, it was Jen's idea to start this show. So,
Yeah.
because I was not necessarily looking to do another podcast. And then she was like, hey, would you do a podcast with me? And I'm like, sure. And
How many episodes later now?
this is 352. So we've done a couple, yeah. Yep. So, well, do we want to do that? How's your week been? And I mean, Kiki wasn't here last week, so by show rules,
So she should be forced
she
to
has to
lead
go
off.
first, right?
No.
No.
I had a week, so
Yeah,
there's
you
that.
did have a week.
If you'd like to, I was
God.
kidding, but if you'd like to lead, go for
No,
it.
she had a week.
I did, because it started off with my mom being, my mom, and apparently she's been stressed, which, okay, I get it, but at the same time, it's like, okay, find your peace somewhere, because, dear God, do not blame your stress on, don't project that onto me,
Yeah.
because you're struggling. It just came down to do it how, I was like, just because I take care of my sister differently than you do does not mean that I do it wrong.
It's really
And
hard for a lot of people to accept.
Yeah, that's a hard one for her to
Yeah.
accept. And I was like, at first I was like, struggling with the whole idea of, fine, if you don't think I'm good enough to do it, find someone else to do it. And then the other part of me is like, nope, we're going to do it completely professionally. Like, you were there to be her caregiver, not her sister this weekend. And I'm like, no, I can't do that either, because that would be soul crushing for me. I can't treat my sister like not my sister.
Right. Yeah.
So, but we had a good time and everything, and no major meltdowns. There was a small, brief one for a moment during Paw Patrol. We had to go see Paw Patrol, and there was a brief moment where a crystal was taken and popcorn and soda was thrown. Thankfully, we were one of four people, or two of four people in the
wow.
theater.
I'm assuming you were the one doing the throwing. You were just upset and a rage at the movie. Yeah.
I was trying to contain the rage.
Oh, okay.
So
It's just me that throws popcorn and soda at the screen. No.
No. I was like, I mean, a different movie maybe, but Paw Patrol, no, that's not what gets me all excited. Sorry.
Yeah. All right.
All up in my feels, but for her it does. And so I was like, I was just talking her through it and everything. But so there's that whole deal. My mom didn't think that I could handle my little sister with some recent issues that she's had. And I'm like, to me, honestly, it sounds like she needs a break from you just as much as you need a break from her.
There's something to be said for that. Like 100%. Like,
I was like, because I was like thinking about it. I was like, step away from the idea that, step away from her disability. She's a 29-year-old being micromanaged by her parent. Would be annoyed as well.
Right? That's right. Yeah. Without any other barriers in there. Just that on its own can be enough.
So
yeah.
I'm like, all right, so she needs a break. So yeah, I told my sister, because my mom was going down to Vegas because my sister got courthouse married and everything, because she really doesn't want to do a big ceremony, but her husband does.
Sister.
Yeah,
Oh,
other
okay.
sister.
I figured so, but I'm glad you specified.
Yeah, third sister down in Vegas. She got married over the weekend, courthouse wise, and that's really all she wanted to do. But he wants to have the whole ceremony and everything else, and she's just like, "Cool, then you plan it." Her plan it. She's like, "I don't even want to do this." So I'm like, that sounds fun. Look at y'all getting married and having married, arguments and everything. It's
Yeah,
adorable.
you gotta love that vibe coming off of that.
Right.
It's like,
So,
I guess
yeah.
we can get married, and the other one's like, I want to take you to the top of a mountain and show you off to. It's like, yeah, whatever. Like, just Photoshop me in the picture.
Right. So my mom went down for that because she didn't get to be a part of mine and my husband's courthouse wedding because we didn't tell anybody.
Yeah.
So she was happy to be a part of that, which is great. And I was glad that she didn't have to stress. So I told my sister, I was like, please get her drunk. Please get her like just to get her to relax.
Just let go a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, because dear God, she needs it. I was like, I'd say get her laid, but it's not exactly something you want to do in Vegas per se.
I don't know. Seems like the right place. I'm sure it'll be easier to get it. I mean, at least it'll be legal if you get it to happen there.
This is true.
If you're paying somebody elsewhere, you might get into some squirrely territory there.
Right. But yeah, then on the way up there, I was going across the high desert area and totally ended up smacking a deer. And the worst part about it, I did everything right. I saw the deer on the side of the road. I started slowing down. It was the car that was coming at me that decided to blare their horn, and they spooked across the road, and I ended up clipping one. So thankfully the car's fairly, it's still drivable and everything. The bumper wasn't any less attached than it was to begin with before the deer happened. So
it is amazing for how graceful they are as an animal, how much it's like just hitting a block of rock.
Right. Right?
How much damage it can do.
Yeah, and it was a 4-point buck at least.
Yeah.
And, that's at least 200 pounds.
Yeah.
Still being hit between 45, 50 miles an hour.
Yeah. I've
Even
seen
though I've
cars
gotten
hit a
slowed down
human
enough.
and not. I've seen cars that have hit a human not have as much damage as ones that have hit a deer. It's crazy. I mean, I know there's different physics there, but it's just this. My dad had a body shop for a long time, so we see enough of it because living in Ohio, there's enough deer around, and like if you get into any of the kind of open country roads that are not too far from here, they're very common. And so he fixed quite a few, and it was just like, man, it's just you can never get over how much damage those things do.
Exactly. And I was like, I'm glad that it didn't do as much damage as it could have, for sure.
But it did the right amount, because this was my old car, and I had happened to have backed this particular fender quarter panel into a concrete column twice.
So you can't notice that at all now because
right. And now that other stuff's gonna get all fixed.
So So there was that, and
Yeah.
then I was driving we went to the dollar store to go get canvases because we did a couple of paintings for upcoming Halloween and everything. I did one for my mom and drew up a picture for my little sister to paint. And so, but on our way back from the dollar store, I had thought that I was in the correct speed zone area to be going 35 miles an hour. I was not, but barely, because we drove back by there today and I noticed and I was like, that son of a bitch. It was closer than what I thought. It was not, a good 2 blocks away that the 35 mile is. So I was like, okay, I did. No, it's like 20 feet. There's another sign that says 35 right across the street from where he was parked and everything. So I had an officer pull me over, give me a ticket for 35 and a 25. And I'm like, of course, because it's a city officer. And I was only maybe half a mile from the county city line. And it's the end of the month. And he was right next to the thing. He's like, well, you can come back and contest it on this court date. And I was like, if it wasn't 4 hours away, I probably would.
Yeah. Like, can I appear
like,
via Zoom? If so, fine.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? And so I was just like, cool. It's like, but I know that the ticket's not going to be that much on there. But I'm like, still, that's stupid because now it's going to be on my record. And I was like, but it was like end of the month. They need their quota. And I was like, if it was a county officer, he just would have flashed his lights at me to slow down.
Mm-hmm.
But no, it's a city officer right at the end of the month.
Yep.
And and I was like, first of all, clearly I'm not from here. My driver's license says as much. And last I knew, it changed to 35 where the roads merged together before you go downtown.
Yeah.
So if that has changed, I apologize.
Yeah, there's a space not too far from where I live that there's this side street, and the cops used to sit on that side street and nail people because because I live like right at the Ohio-Michigan border, and when you
Right.
go out of Michigan, it goes from I think 45 to 40 or something like that, or to 35 right there. I think I can't remember what it is, but it's they used to just sit there and nail people left and right coming out of
Speed
Michigan.
trap.
Yep.
Total speed trap.
Yeah, and
Yep.
it was, and people started fighting it left and right because it was like, it was deceiving because a lot of times, this one tree right there would grow over the speed limit sign and you couldn't see it.
Mhm.
So people would go and take pictures of that and be like, "Hey, I didn't know that the speed limit changed," and got out of it. So it's like I haven't seen a cop sit there in a long time. I think it was getting fought too much to where they were like, "Hey, maybe stop because we're literally
We're
overturning
getting
every
har-
one
yeah,
of these."
it's like at this point it's harassment.
Yeah.
Like, just let people be for a little while.
Yeah, I was surprised they didn't somehow just get somebody out there to cut the tree back all the time.
Right?
That
That's
way you
like
could
the-
see the sign, and then that gets rid of that defense. But yeah,
So yeah, that was my week. But the headlight and everything is now secured with a lot more duct tape.
yeah.
It doesn't work, and it got sheared. Yeah, like the electrical and everything. I need a whole new headlight now.
Oh, jeez.
Whole new.
And
headlight
it sucks
now.
because headlights now are not what they used to be. Like I remember I used to change headlights for my dad at his shop when I was like a teen all the time, and it was you just unscrew it, take it out, unplug it, put the new one in. He would come over. The only thing he would do is I don't know if you still do, but you used to have to make sure that they were basically pointing the right way. Because if
Yeah.
you set them a certain way, they could be pointing like almost like if you were cross-eyed,
Yeah.
So
yeah.
you wanted to make sure they were pointing straight.
or
so
too low or too
yeah.
high. Or,
So he would
yeah.
come over and do that. But aside from that, and it was super easy. And they weren't. I mean, we used to go over to the junkyard and get them all the time, for nothing basically. And
Yeah, and that's probably where it all else fails, depending on what insurance says and everything.
Yeah,
But
because I know some
realistically,
people
I
have.
was like,
I've heard some
ordering
stories.
one brand new for a 2006, and you probably just find one in probably about almost as good as quality, maybe.
Yeah. Well, that's why I said he used to do it all the time because there were so many that were in great shape over there. It's just he was like, yeah, I can go get you one from a junkyard for $30 or whatever it was, or I can order you a new
Mhm.
one and that's going to be, $100 or $150 kind of a thing. And it's funny.
And then
People are like,
later,
yeah, people are like, that junkyard one sounds pretty good.
Right.
And he's like, it's basically the same thing. Because a lot of the
Mhm.
cars in the junkyards are, he's like, you never know how new those those bulbs are. So
Well,
or
Heno
headlights.
just said that he changed one of the bulbs on it, so it was a good bulb at
Oh,
the very least.
jeez.
But
I had just replaced the bulb inside the assembly. Which is kind of funny.
But yeah, it needs a whole new assembly, and the windshield wiper, it might not be working as well as what I thought, the windshield wiper box.
The fluid.
Yeah, like, because it's been going out, but then it kind of stops. I don't know if it's just running out or if it's got a hole somewhere in the line or somewhere
right
cracked.
where that whole bin is
okay.
on that side.
Right.
But I did
and there's
zip tie.
The pump is under there too. So.
Yeah, I did zip tie the bumper to the panel that's on the inside of the tire well.
Mm.
Yeah, where there's holes where the screws used to be attached that weren't. Yeah, I just took some zip ties and fixed that, so it's a little bit more sturdy than Gorilla
when
Tape.
she first said, "Oh, I don't have a headlight," and then she sent the pictures today, and it's like, that's a bent hood, a bent quarter panel, a cracked bumper, and a bent front. You know where the hood comes down on that bar, that crossbar.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, basically it's the upper radiator mount.
Yeah.
All of it's bent. It's
Like I
like,
said,
that was some damage.
I've seen some pretty bad. I mean, there were a couple times like, people brought stuff to my dad, and my dad's like, "Have you talked to your insurance yet?" And they were like, "Why?" And he's like, "This is probably going to be totaled." And they were like, "Really?" And it's like, he's like, "Yeah, the frame is bent." He's like, "If you bend the frame, the insurance isn't going to pay, basically, because it's too much. You have to remove too much to, bend the frame right, and then you can still have alignment issues and blah, blah, blah." He's like, "Yeah, we don't do that here." So quite a few times, and that's why I said it's so amazing, because you see the size of them and you're like, yeah, it's a big thing. But I just picture, like, if I got hit by a car, I don't imagine I'm destroying the car the way that they do.
So how was your mother's mood when you picked her up from the airport?
A lot better.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah.
Did they get
right
her
up
drunk?
until she got home, and I don't know. They had like 4 things of sake when they went out for sushi.
All right.
So 2 hot, 2 cold. So.
Okay.
But then she got home and was like getting nitpicky about this, that, or the other, and I'm just like,
and
I was like, right. I was like, okay, cool. I'm gonna take one of these peaches and bounce, because Jesus.
Yeah, it stinks so much when you take somebody out of an environment and you get a different person, and then when you put them back in that environment and they just fall right back into who they were, and it's it's so
the
frustrating.
other thing that she wanted to complain about was, she's like, I have all this stuff from the food bank and yada yada yada, and I was like, well, if you hate it so much and hate having that much to do, then stop going to the food bank.
Right?
It's like, well, yeah, but they have, your aunts and uncles and your cousins have me go because they're all working during the time, and I at least have the time off with Mackenzie to be able to go and do it. And I'm like, set a boundary.
Yeah.
You can tell them no.
Yep.
You don't have to do it.
100% right. Yeah.
So I was just like,
it's really hard. We've talked on here before about, like, setting boundaries is such a hard thing to do, especially if you're not a person
I still struggle. Yeah.
Especially if you're not the kind of person who typically sets boundaries. Like, really learning how and sticking to them. Sticking to them is maybe harder than setting them sometimes, because, people always have some reason that you should drop the boundary. And sticking to it's like, well, now I feel like a jerk. And it's like, no. They know you said no, and they're still trying to get you to drop your boundary. It's like, you're not being a jerk here. It's like, it's tough,
I'm struggling with that same issue with one of my coworkers, and I told the pretzel maker guy today, I'm like, if you're banning my employee from your shop, then you tell them. It is not my job to tell them. It's your shop.
That's right.
Like,
yeah, you got
like,
the
if they're being
cojones to
obnoxious and
ban
annoying, I was
them.
like, I understand that because the employee in question is on the spectrum, so that social awkwardness is definitely there. And apparently he has a confrontation issue, which is funny because he's also the assistant manager of the whole mall. And I'm like, but you can't handle someone with a disability when you have a mall full of them at least 2 days out of the week, because they come down there to do walks in the mall and everything.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's not my job to tell this person. Sorry.
Yep.
But good to know. Thanks for letting me know, and I'll address it, because we've been addressing it with them. But I was like, but if she's banned, then you tell her.
Yeah.
Or your staff tells her. It's not my job.
Yeah, he's for sure going to delegate that.
My win for the week was setting a boundary.
Oh.
Yeah, at work, we had an owner came up to me like fully hostile, just like body language, everything. Did you turn the irrigation water off? Yeah, we did. unbelievable. I can't believe it. I spent $8,000 and blah blah blah, and he said like something about idiots or whatever, and I just looked at him and said, you need to go talk to Joe, the general manager, with that attitude.
Yeah, you for sure don't get to talk to me with that attitude.
And I just
Yeah.
sat there and was quiet. And he's like, fine, I will.
Yeah.
So he walked off, and I'm like, okay. Yeah, and I was like, all right, that was like the old training kicked in. If you ever feel like you're in a hostile situation, it was either going to be I'm going to walk away or you need to walk away.
Yeah.
And he walked away, so I'm like, perfect. So in the meantime, I go up the stairs. I'm like, okay, I'm pretty sure I saw that it was going to be 30 degrees for the next 2 nights. So I looked on the phone. Yes, it's going to be 30 degrees for the next 2 nights. It was in the 30s over the weekend. It's fall.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we are not watering the plants any longer.
Wait, what? Why?
It's like
you don't ice your plants?
it's time to go to Arizona to your other home now.
Yeah.
And allow everything to go dormant here.
Right.
Anyhow, so I get it. As I'm going up the stairs, checking the weather to make sure I was wrong, Joe comes out. He's like, "So," and I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Did he go off on you too?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "It was really bad," and I'm like, "I know. It's not like him." And I was like, and right away I wanted to be. I would like to be in a solution, but it's like I'm not turning on all the irrigation just for him.
Yeah.
It's like it's gonna get worse. It's gonna the water is going to freeze over what plants are alive, and they
Yeah.
will be very dead. So after a while sitting in the the office, and it was great. It's like not once did I feel like my anxiety go up or any sort of emotional stuff. It was just very matter of fact, and that's because I set a boundary and I didn't engage.
Mm.
And I did what I was supposed to do. So I felt really calm about it. And I went, okay, this is what I can do. I can turn it on tonight because it wasn't going to be freezing that night. And I'm like, I'll water it. I'll do a deep watering and then I'll shut it off. And I was like, I'll see him the next day. And I know he's going to be okay about it. And I was going to have to tell him that, like, hey, it's going to be freezing.
Yeah.
It's like, we're done.
Yeah.
We're already removing, because people will come out to us and they're like, why are you getting rid of all the plants and the flowers now? And it's just like, because we have time.
Yeah.
Because if we wait
Because
2 more weeks,
Maybe next week we won't have time.
Yeah.
And then we might have then it's going to be a pain. So I know you guys all want to still look at flowers, but it's done. It's
Yeah.
over.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the dumpster.
Right.
just like go to the botanical center.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
From
exactly.
that
Go down we had a
Feel
beautiful
free to
botanical
take them
garden.
inside.
So sure enough, the next day, I heard on the radio that that somebody wanted me that I wanted in the office, and I'm like, okay, it's Frank coming up to, because I knew. So he walks in, big old bottle of tequila. I'm like, awesome, very nice tequila.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have drank it.
Right. Right.
I gave it to my coworker, who I know enjoys some tequila.
Sure.
A couple bottles of wine. He was super apologetic, and I thought, I don't know if it wasn't my lack of sleep or whatever it was. And I'm like, Frank, you broke 5 ribs a month ago. He fell
Oof.
like in a parking lot and took a full shot on a curb to the
Oh,
ribs.
man.
Oh,
Right. And
Yeah.
I'm like, it's like sometimes stuff comes out of left field. It's
Yeah.
okay.
Right.
We're not going to hold it against you. And it was all of everything that I learned in recovery about the idea of if I was in the hospital with somebody and they were being treated for cancer and they threw up on me, would I, suddenly jump back and be offended and yell at them?
Yeah.
I'd say no. I'd grab a towel and wipe it off, and I'd, hope, I'd feel for that person.
Yeah.
And that was the idea of how do we react when somebody we know is sick, and sometimes that can be physical or emotional.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we throw up on our closest people with our words.
Yep.
And it's just a bad day. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And Frank just had a bad day.
Right.
And the next day he was, so apologetic, and he's like, it's just not. And it was so out of character.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
and that
he-
helps too, right? Like if he was just some stranger, it's a little harder to give them that grace than somebody like you said,
Yeah.
where you're like, this isn't him.
Yeah.
Like this
Yeah.
is not who he
get
normally is.
He can get a
you
little
know?
fired up,
Yeah.
but he doesn't get mean
Yeah.
and hostile. And that was the thing. I was like you need to go. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, you need to be out right now.
Yeah.
This conversation is not going to happen.
Yeah, that's the right thing though. Like saying, "Hey, go talk to the general manager." That's what the general
that's it.
manager's for.
Is there for.
I used to tell people that when I was the manager on duty and stuff. I'd be like, if a customer starts yelling at you, just come get me, or tell them to come over and talk to me or whatever. And if somebody started screaming at me, I mean, countless times I just walked away from them,
That's it.
or I'd look at them and say, "You don't get to talk to me that way." Like, if you want to have a conversation, we can talk. But if you're going to yell and call me names, we're done here.
Yeah.
And it made people very mad because I'd set that boundary. It's like, no, I got too much respect for myself, and I'm making $7 an hour. I don't care.
That's it.
Like, I'll walk out of here before I'll let you yell at me.
Yeah. And I've had that happen. I've looked somebody in the face before and said, I'm going to turn around and walk away right now because this is feeling completely out of line.
Yeah.
For the situation. And that's what this is. This is about some plants and the weather.
Right?
And water.
It's like, that doesn't warrant this.
Yeah. And I was ready to do that. So
Yeah.
that worked out well. Music stuff worked out really well this week. I kept the commitment I had and with my band, and I showed up for recording, and I knew I was going to have technical issues, and of course I had technical issues, and it was all something that I knew I'd be able to figure out what it was, and I was trying stuff right then. But what I loved is I didn't get any pressure, and Paul and Tom worked on their own, and by the time I got to a point where I'm like, okay, let's try some stuff. I just want to. Because really, it was like it was my new laptop, and I'm recording keyboards, which I've never done before, really, and especially like recording someone that's actually a really good keyboard player. And I'm like, I just want to see how the recording works, and just try some things and see how we're doing with this. And it ended up being really great. And it was like we put in a few hours, and it's like, okay, let's call it good. And, I got home, I figured out what was wrong. I figured out what the problem was, and everything was great. And Tom was really respectful about my time, and everything just worked out how it should. And it was a trip the next day when I was going to go check in with him. I was going to send a text message to Jason, our drummer, about maybe doing some recording on vocals. And he texted me that day. I was like, okay, cool. And I like when you just, even though maybe inside I wanted to say something or do something, but I would rather let things develop and hope and be hopeful that it's going to work out the way it should. And it did. And then the next night I went and jammed with some new guys. And that was the one where, like, 2 nights before, I'm like, maybe I should learn some of these songs. Because I was so enjoying just not doing music.
Yeah.
It was like I was enjoying not doing too much on it. And so I quickly, I listened to the songs, and I made some notes. The next day I made some more notes and printed out some stuff, wrote it up, went over there. And I was like, because my whole point was this, is we're either going to groove together or we're not. It's either going to feel right or it's going to be funky, and we'll know right away. And it was just like, we just cranked out tune after tune after tune. Sure. They started a little rough. They ended a little rough. There's a little, mistakes here and there, but pretty much we were playing all of these songs. No problem. Even played some original music, and it was great. I even got to sing, and Scott's got a beautiful place. It's like old mining claims, so there's no electricity up this like little valley, this gorge kind of, and so he's completely off the grid. It was like solar battery stuff, a big old generator when he needs it, and just a beautiful house too. They built it like an old farmhouse, like an old craftsman style kind of farmhouse. And it was just a great, blast from the past. But it was really cool too, because I know he cut his thumb off with a saw.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hard to hold the frets of a guitar.
I would think so.
When you don't have a thumb behind it. Right.
Right.
And the other thing that happened, he lost his wife last year. And I think he might have lost her to addiction, which is just really sad. And I hadn't brought that up with him. I talked to him a little bit about his thumb, but I got over there. I was like, God, I wonder what he's going to be like,
Yeah.
He was killing it,
Yeah.
killing it on guitar. And then we also talked a little bit about him, his whole life. He's got 3 sons. They're all adults now. They're all off on their own. He's basically by himself out there, and he seemed totally good. I was like, it's a lot of heavy stuff to go through.
Yeah.
Where you're like, say he lays tile for a living.
Mm.
I imagine that thumb is pretty freaking important.
Yeah, it feels like it would be.
And then for the guitar, especially when something you love, and you could just tell he was like, I got to figure this out. I got to make it work.
Okay.
And it was really cool. Yeah, he's another person. It's been a strange year for me with musicians. He's another guy that I've seen play. I've enjoyed his playing. Never, we have interacted in the past, but never really had a chance to have a conversation. And we're completely kindred spirits. We love the same music. We're a few years apart in age, and it was really a treat. And then there was the drummer that played with us. I never played with him either, and I knew he was just amazing, and he was. So it was really fun. It was cool, and it was great too because they're like, "Hey, you want to go upstairs and smoke a bowl?" It's like, I went upstairs and you want some? No, thanks. Don't don't do that. It's like, do you drink? I'm like, no, don't drink either.
Yeah.
And it was no big deal. They're like, doing their thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's
always nice. Like I'm that way too. It's like, been places where people be, passing a joint around or something and be like, you want something? I'm like, it's like, it's not that I haven't or wouldn't, but it's just kind of like at the time I'm like, nah, I'm good. Thanks though, and they're like, yeah, no problem. It comes around again. Usually they'll offer it. I'm like, nah, that's all right. Like, nothing insistent.
We forget, okay? Sometimes we forget that you say no the first time.
No,
That's
it's
why we
fine.
ask again.
No, what I mean is getting at is it's like they're not like trying
it's
to
not
push
super
it.
pushy.
No,
Yeah,
it's just
yeah.
more like they're offering like change your mind, and it's like, nah, I'm
Yeah.
still good. Okay, cool, and just whatever, and it's fine. And I it's like those kind of vibes I'm totally cool with. I hate when people try to push whatever with alcohol or weed or whatever on you, and it's like, just if someone says no, it's just okay. That's it.
Yeah. And then work's been crazy. We have a concrete parking garage, and I'm talking like a full-on parking garage. It's built like one.
Okay.
Like we've got ramps and things like that in these garages, 2
Right.
levels. And we had a section of concrete start to blow apart, basically.
Oh wow.
And I would go bang on it, and you could tell it was hollow underneath. And it was like, okay, we need to cut this up and see what's going on under here. So we spent a lot of money. It's like almost 20 grand
Wow.
to come in and tear all the concrete out. And there was so much metal in there and so much rebar. We actually ended up jumping in and helping them, because otherwise it would have just taken forever. And so we got electric jackhammers, and it was just coming. It went apart. Like, basically we were brooming the pieces up.
Oh wow.
And it wasn't until we got down to the bottom underneath the layer that it finally started coming up actually in some chunks. But otherwise it was just horrible. And the guys that did the work, when they poured the new concrete down, you're trying to, you'll always know it's a patch. It's not, but they did a great job.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of money. And it's like, we found out that the rebar was only about an inch away from the top of the concrete. So as soon as there was a crack,
Oh man.
water got to the rebar started to rust, it expands, it was blowing apart.
Oh man, that could be
So-
a real problem. Yeah.
Yeah, so I start looking around everywhere, because that's basically what led to the collapse of that residential tower in Florida.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Is the rusting metal. Well, they had other issues too.
Yeah,
but it was
I watched-
basically water getting into concrete.
Right. I watched a show, I think on the Weather Channel, where they showed like a bridge just one day. It just collapsed, like a big
Yes.
chunk of it, and that's what it was.
Yes,
Water
same
was
thing.
able
Yep.
to get inside, and it rotted
Yep.
the metal, or rusted. I mean, not rotted, rusted the metal out. Yeah.
So we have another stairwell that's happening too, because they never put any waterproofing on the top of it, and I've been looking at it for years, and now that I'm not that I'm in charge, but at least I don't have anybody blocking me
Yeah.
from
Right.
like raising a flag like this is a problem.
Yeah.
And so I finally, because our snow melt stopped working in the stairs, and that's because one section of it moved because the rebar's all rusting, and it was the same condition. It was
Wow.
just too close, and so we're gonna have those stairs replaced. In the meantime, I'm looking at it's like, okay, I know a company that makes a product line. They mainly deal with basements and preventing water intrusion and radon gas from getting into a basement.
Yeah.
So they have a great product line. Well, they had all these epoxies and crack fillers and all this stuff. And so I bought a bunch of them. I'm like, let's see what happens. So I'm trying this and that and this expanding foam stuff. And I'm like, okay, this works here. This works here. Okay, I like this. I'm not so much about this. And in the meantime, I'm walking around these garages finding out how much is wrong. And then I'm finding more problems with the rebar, and it's like, oh, okay, well, this happened because they cut, how they'll cut lines into concrete to prevent cracks.
Yeah.
You'll see like sections. They may have been one pour, but then they'll cut little
grid
strips.
it off. Yeah.
Yeah.
You only need like a 3/4 inch deep.
Yeah.
If even that. I found 2 inches deep. They basically cut right through the rebar, and it was exposed in there.
Oh wow.
And we've never seen it because the slurry, when they cut the concrete, was all packed in there. So then I start hosing this stuff. Like, this could be my full-time job
Wow.
for months.
Oh my goodness.
Like, there are cracks everywhere. And now it's a matter of figuring out, okay, which ones have to get done now, which ones are a problem. And then it's about budgeting for it. And
Yeah.
the upper garage is 30,000 square feet.
Oh my God.
Between all of our garages, we have about 80,000 square feet of concrete. And I'm like, and we need to seal all of it. Yeah.
Wow.
But what's been cool is it's a bummer that I need to do other stuff at work. But honestly, if this is all I did for like a year, I would get so much out of it.
Yeah.
Because I know I'm fixing something that could be a worse problem.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm saving money. I'm
Yeah.
preventing further,
Just think
damage.
of the next earthquake that happens to shake a little bit, like how much damage that's saving in the long run. Just
Yeah, well, those cracks aren't going to get any better.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Sure.
And I just keep finding stuff, and so it's been really it's like at the end of the week I'm like, wow, what a week, because I really did a lot. But on the other hand, it's like I'm not supposed to be just doing one thing.
Right.
I'm actually supposed to be doing a lot of things, and I'm like, well, how important is this?
Right.
And to me, it's really important. So I'm constantly checking in with
Yeah.
my GM
Yeah, because
and my coworkers.
this feels
and
like something that may not be the biggest problem right now, but it's going to be if you don't
it's
address
going
it.
to be. Yeah. And what happened is we saw the one that we had to dig up. Well, we didn't have to dig it all up in the end, but we needed to figure out if it was a structural issue or whatever it was.
Right.
Luckily, in the end, we find out it's not a structural issue. It's something that's repairable. But we saw how fast it deteriorated.
Right.
Like when I noticed it, it was a few months and it was getting worse and worse and worse. Like to the point where I'm like, if we don't do something about this, you might not be able to drive a car over this section
Yeah.
anymore.
Right.
It's going to be a hole.
Mhm.
In the end, it ended up being, like I said, I found another section that was just like it, where it was hollow underneath, and I was able to inject epoxy in there, this expanding foam, and then the sealer. We found this penetrating sealer, and I put an air hose up to one little hole, and I could see the sealer shooting out everywhere as I was trying to pour the sealer in there, and the air stopped as I was doing
Oh
it.
wow.
The sealer was filling all the little
That's
pores.
cool.
It was really cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of tech, and then it's the part of where it's like there's a certain amount of creativity. I see, like, okay, here's this crack, and this is how you have to fix it, and it's been pretty cool. And then try to make it look like, like when it's done, it's clear. I'm using epoxy, so epoxy doesn't look like concrete.
Yeah.
But after a car is driven over for about a month
Yeah.
and put its you can't tell the difference
Right. I bet.
at all. It's been cool. So that's been a really fun thing for me. Like my work can be, my work can go from being exciting to rather boring, and this is actually kind of exciting for me. I haven't been excited about projects for a while that I guess I should say that aren't anxiety, like the whole thing with the pipe replacement that we dealt with.
Yeah.
That was also really satisfying, but there was a lot
a
of
lot of
anxiety
stress,
with
yeah.
that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, a
Constantly
lot of stress.
Watching the water heaters and of the
Well,
tanks and everything.
entire
and-
buildings, going there all night long, and entire buildings where the people that might need to be moved out or
Yeah.
something if we couldn't heat it, like all that stress. This at least has none of that stress with it.
Yeah.
And so it's been kind of fun. So it's been, since we podcasted last week, it's like everything that I was working on, I continue to work on. I'm selling more things. I went through and I looked at all my microphones and I'm like, okay, am I using this? Am I using this? Am I using this? Nope, not. Do I need this anymore? And I'm listening to it going, nope. And if it turns out I do need it later, I can get another one.
Yeah.
And that was that thing of letting go, and that's that idea of like, I want to hold on to things because just in case.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know what? If just in case happens, I will deal with that when it happens.
It's such a it's coming up with that scarcity mindset. I
Yes.
was talking to my mom about that recently, and I was like, I feel like everyone, it's a good skill to have, but you don't. The problem is that if you grew up in that, or you have a period in your life where you really go through where you hang on to every little thing, or you got to plan for 14 steps ahead, and it's like it really ends up kind of wrecking you a little bit, and it's hard to let go of stuff. And like you're saying, and it's because, like you said, it's like, well, I might need it for this, or it's like, do you though? Like, how long have you had it? Oh, I've had it 10 years. Like, have you needed it for that? No, but I might. It's like, you've had it
My
10
mom
years and it
listens to
hasn't
this
come up.
just because for her bread maker. We've been trying to buy that off of her for years. She's like, no, I might need it. And I'm like, when was the last time you used it? I was like, the last time it was used is when it was used by me or my sister while we were here.
Yeah. Years ago, I wanted to get one, and my sister was like, don't buy one. I have one, and we don't use it. I'm like, cool. She gave it to me. I used it like once. And then after months, I was like, I should just give this back to her because I've only used this thing one time. So I did, and now, like, over the last few months, I've kind of been like, dang, I wish I would have kept that. But it was seriously 15 years ago, or 12 years ago, something like it was so long ago. It's like, no, if you want one, just set the money aside and go buy another one. The fact that, you wouldn't have been justified to hold on to it all those years
Right.
just to use it now, and maybe just once again, because maybe I make one loaf of bread and go, but, probably not, because the recipes have gotten so much better. Like, when I
Right.
borrowed that one from her, there weren't a lot of real recipes for it. It was pretty much like you use what the manual says, and the bread was garbage.
Right.
So
Right.
that's why I gave it back so soon, or gave it back, because I was like, yeah, the bread was not good. So,
So my last little bit is the people that have listened to me on various podcasts for a long time will appreciate this, but my former podcast partner, Angela, who I used to do Angela's Awesome Podcast with, she's a personal trainer.
Yeah.
And she sent me a text message this week saying, she's got a ski conditioning class, but what she does is when she teaches the class, it's not a workout for her. So she wants to do a workout, and she likes to have a partner. But the only way she can have a partner where she works out is she has to pay for them to be there, right? Because I don't have a membership there at that particular gym. So she's like, would you be interested in doing, a couple nights a week after work for like $25? And I was like, totally worth it, because she'll give me motivated. But I have done no physical activity for 3 years.
yeah.
And I was like, I will die. Like, I just saw myself after about 35 minutes, like just on the floor,
Crying.
gasping for
Yeah.
air, dying, and then not being able to walk for like 2 weeks.
Yeah, right.
But I really need to do this because
Right.
it'll get me back motivated. It'll get me back into, because I really do want to get back into the gym and do something.
This is going to be
I
one of
really
those where
do.
you got to or you got to train for training, basically.
That's what I'm kind of that's what I told her I'd seriously consider, because she wants to start next week, and I'm like, okay, if I can get to the gym this weekend, then that'll indicate that I'm serious, that I could actually do this. If the weekend goes by and I never go, then I'm like, sorry, it's out. I
Yeah,
can't.
yeah. Like, I think that ship has sailed. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, if it was if it was like you, Brian, and you said, "Hey, you want to come to the gym with me a couple days?" I would have been like, "Yeah, no problem."
Yeah.
Because I know I'm not gonna die.
Yeah, because
But it's Angela.
yeah, she's
I
gonna
found
push
that
you for
offer
sure.
too, to go to the gym as part of my new Airbnb hosting perks is that they're gonna put me on the Planet Fitness membership thing, which is also cool because they do like the red light therapy and they have the water massage tables.
Mhm.
So I'm like, if that's the only thing I got for it,
Liz, I have known
The
people who've
executive
had
workout.
gym memberships for one perk for so long. Like, somebody will get a gym membership just to go use the sauna, or
Mhm.
a massage, or just to ride an exercise bike, or whatever.
Oh,
And
that's
it's like,
what they do at my work.
and I'm in my head, I'm going, you can just go buy an exercise bike. It's actually one of the least expensive pieces of equipment, unless you're buying like a Peloton,
a
or something,
Peloton, yeah.
but just a plain exercise bike you can buy for a couple $100, and it's like, or a treadmill I get, because for a long time treadmills were, $1,500, $2,000, and it's like, not everyone can kind of pull that out of their backside, Not that everyone can pull $300 out either, but the people I'm talking about, it's like, I know they could. It's weird to pay $25 or $30 a month, and it's like, within a year you could own the bike. But going to the gym, it's like the mentality of it's like going to work, like versus working at home. For some people, it's like, if I work at
Right.
home, I'll be lazy. If I go to work, I'll be in a different mindset. So it's like, I get it, but I wouldn't feel bad at all if I've actually considered, there's a gym not too far from here, and I've considered, because in the winter you can't really do much here, as you guys too. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
you can't, it's like, oh, I'm not going for a jog. I mean, I wouldn't anyway, but it's like, I'm not going to go for a bike ride in the winter. It's too
Right.
dangerous. I'm not gonna, I'm too old for that. I don't want to take a header over the
The
handlebars.
funny thing is, that's what they're doing now up here.
Yeah.
is the fat tire bikes in the winter,
People are doing
and
it
they're
here
actually
too.
running
Yeah,
with these specialty little snowshoes now. I'm
Yeah.
like,
Like little
what the?
little cleat things
Yeah.
or whatever. so
No,
they
they're
go on.
actually like
They're-
these
yeah.
small snowshoes, and they do these it's 100-mile runs
yeah.
through snow.
It's crazy to me. Like, to me, I'm just like, well, like every once in a while, like through the winter, you'll see somebody running and stuff, and I'm like, why don't you just go to the gym? And it's like, well, they like running outside, I guess. I
No,
don't,
it really is. There's
you
The
know,
there's-
cold air on the
yeah, I
lungs.
guess.
And, yeah,
Yeah.
there's a
so there's
whole-
there's an actual temperature at my work where because I can tell when there's more of an energy load
Mhm.
being used
Oh,
at the
yeah.
health club.
Yeah.
And it's actually based on outside temperature. So people will be outdoors to a ridiculously low temperature. I mean, it's amazing, right? And so it's freezing cold. It is so weird when it is freezing outside and we actually have to cool down a health club
because there's so many people.
because
in
it's
there.
interesting.
okay.
When it gets to be about 5 degrees, somewhere between 5 and 8 degrees, that's when everyone's like, yeah, I'm done. I'm going to the gym. But what's crazy is that, I mean, it's 10 degrees and they're like, oh, that's good. We're double digits. And like there's
wild.
like very little load on the health club, but there's a certain point. And then
Huh.
when it gets high, the same thing happens because
it
what
gets
that
too
means,
warm.
and the snow conditions are horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It gets slushy. And so all of a sudden it's in the 20s and the heat load at the gym
Yeah.
goes, it's so
See,
weird.
that side I can 100% get, because I hate slush. Like, I don't even like walking in it, because you never know what could be underneath it. It literally can
Yeah.
mimic like black ice. Like, you hit a piece of slush and you're just like, yeah, and so it's like, I hate being around slush. Well, I got a bad knee, so I'm always like trying to be careful
Yeah.
of the terrain I'm on. But it's like, as you were talking about that, I was kind of thinking about it, going, you know what? The last time I was in a gym, I went with my brother, and I was on an elliptical, and I remember standing there going, man, it is hot in here. And thinking about it, it was like, you know what? I'm the kind of person that if you gave me the option to use like an elliptical or something outside, and it was like 30 degrees, I'd probably be happier than being
Yep.
inside in
Mhm.
50 degrees or 70 or whatever range you're in, because I get hot so quickly. Whereas in 30-degree weather, by the end of the workout, I'm probably not going to be overheated.
No,
you
you're
know.
gonna be like rolling steam out there.
Yeah, and that's the thing. When I walk outside, I'll just start, steam will come off my head. So that's why it's like, that beer fest we were at was like 4 degrees, and I'm like, I really wasn't that cold in it. Now I will say this, that is one of the things I for sure have noticed as I've as I get older is I am getting colder a little easier, you know. But otherwise, yeah. Otherwise, I could see doing that though. But I wouldn't run or whatever outside. But it's just if you gave me an option to where I could, like, if you had like a cover or something, and I could just bike
Oh yeah.
outside, but still be like I'm not going to have like rain or snow like on me. I'd probably be all for it. I could easily see myself doing like body weight exercises outside versus doing them in the gym. Because I see some of these people in the gym, and you look at them and you're like, I bet it's like 80 degrees in there, And I don't care if they got those big like airplane engine fans. It's like all that's doing is moving hot air. That doesn't help me.
It is, and then it's like smelly, sweaty, human hot air, and that is not the sauna I signed up for.
In fairness, well, maybe not as much now, but I had an immunity to that because I used to own a comic book shop, so. The people coming
fair.
in, I was well used to the funk from that, so that wasn't going to bother me a lot.
Every once in a while, we'll get a call from the health club saying that people are complaining it's too cool in the gym. And my first response that I want to say is, well, tell them to work out harder.
Yeah, that's right.
But I don't. I go in there and I adjust the temperature.
That is interesting, though. I had never thought about that. I wonder if, because of the area you're in, you have, like you said, because of the slush and stuff. I wonder if other places adjust their temperatures accordingly. Because most of the gyms I've been in here, they're pretty much around the same temperature, summer, winter, doesn't matter. They don't seem to really adjust. They seem to be about it feels like about 70 or so, 75, something like that.
You know what it's like when the setting that you have that you want to feel like when it's really hot outside and you walk into a space
and it's just like
and when it feels like yes, that is nice, cool, but then when it is freezing cold outside and you walk into that same exact temperature and you're like, no, you need to turn that up a little bit.
Oh yeah, for sure, right? Yep.
Isn't it? It's so, and that happened to me this week. I was sitting for lunch and I mean, not like it's cold outside. It's whatever, it's like 60 degrees or something like that. But like all of a sudden that 70. Well, we had the office set for 71 degrees.
Mm.
And I was just like, that's a little too cold. Let's turn that up a little
That's what
bit.
I mentioned that.
But 71 is like a bare minimum when it's hot.
Yeah, I was thinking about I think I mentioned that to somebody about how, to me, 60 degrees is that weird spot because like in the summer, 60. If you come inside and your house is 60, it's like this might be a little cool. But in the winter, if you come in and it's 60, it's a different kind of cold. It's like, it's cold in here. Why is it so cold?
Spring 60 versus fall 60.
Yeah,
so
or
weird.
70.
Totally
70 is a
different.
good one too, because spring 70 or summer 70 is nice. It's like this is perfect. In the winter, 70 is like, we could. Can you inch it up a little bit? It's just a little chilly in here. It's so funny how it's the same temperature, but like here you won't have. In the summer, we usually have humidity with it. And it just feels so different. It's crazy, but yeah, that's interesting.
How's your week been?
Weeks, pretty boring as usual. Our weather this week has been just not a lot of rain, but just like the threat of rain all week, to where it's been pretty cloudy and gloomy and. And I was telling my mom the one day when we were out, and I was like, the part that sucks about this in this area is that when it starts, you go, oh yeah, it's coming. And then we're going to have months of gloomy, and especially somebody with depression, you immediately are like, oh man, because all that sunshine's going to be gone. It's just going to be bleh until March, or April. And, you never know, but it's typically from the experience here. I think what was it? I think last year I talked about this. I think I found something that said that like this area, I think it's almost 60% cloudy days like out of a year. So in all of our sunny days, a lot of them are in the summer, but we do get them in the winter sometimes. But those are the days you don't want. I mean, you like the sun, but you don't want the sun so much in the winter because that means there's no cloud cover, and that usually means it's real cold.
Oh, that's when same here.
Yeah,
with up here.
right.
That's when it's
so
really cold.
Yeah, it's like so. it's like you like it because you're like, oh, hey, sun. But then you walk outside and you're like, oh, yeah, cold.
Yeah, that's 12 degrees.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks beautiful, from inside. You're like, oh, man, it looks like a gorgeous day. And like you said, step outside and you're like, oh, yeah, this is like 12 degrees. It is real cold out here.
That's
It's like my nose hairs are freezing together
Yeah.
as I inhale. This is not okay.
That's when I know the barometers when Bogart goes out the back door, and I've seen him quite literally, as the air hits him at the threshold, suddenly pull a U-turn and head right back in.
Yeah.
Like he was ready to go out and do his
Yeah.
business, and he's like, nope.
Now, see, I have an equivalent to that, which is I'm a person who I will wear shorts deep into fall, right? And there'll be a point where I'll go to step outside and I'll be like, nope, and turn around and come right back in. Like, all right, I got to get some jeans on because it is too cold for shorts now, But I usually will wear them until I absolutely can't wear them anymore. So I feel for Bogart on that one. But yeah, it's been like that. The worst part actually has been that with the threat of rain, like I'm congested today, but it's it just screws with my sinuses and gives me headaches, and that always sucks because it's bad enough it's gloomy out, and then on top of it I'm like, oh, I feel terrible, I'm just gonna lay in bed, and I've been doing that a lot the last few days, and forced myself to get up today, and because I had some steaks I had to cook, and if I let them go any another day, then you start getting into that. I got to smell them first.
Yeah.
So I was like, I need to get up and cook these. Plus, I accidentally, I ordered groceries at the grocery store, and I've been buying fresh green beans because I like green beans a little firm. And I can always, and my mom doesn't care for them as firm, but I can just cook them a little longer for her, And whereas you can't so much do that with like canned green beans. I can't so much make them firm unless I like burn them, So, so I was like, okay, and I bought I ordered a big bag, and I thought that they said that they were out. So I went to the fruit and vegetable place up the road. They have them by the pound, so I'm just grabbing handfuls of them and throwing them in this bag. So now I have green beans all over the place, which I can blanch and freeze or give some away, whatever. But I just was like, I'm like, yeah, we're eating green beans like every night. So I threw some of those with the steak and stuff tonight. But and that's one thing that I need to get better at, is getting back up and making dinners and stuff, because I've really fallen into waking up going, oh, this is easy, and making that. And that's always a sign for me that I'm kind of spiral. I'm going the wrong way. I was talking with Tony about this on Salty Language a little bit, and I need to talk to my therapist about that whenever I schedule another appointment. Which, by the way, I think I talked about that last time. I think I was like, yeah, I'm excited. I have an appointment Monday for therapy. And then Monday, I got a text that was like, oh, yeah, she's not in the office today. Sweet. And they don't just auto schedule you another one, even though she schedules out like 2 months. It's like,
great.
Why can't you just give me another one? And if that's not okay with me, I can, anyway. So I, knowing me in phone calls, I've obviously not called to take care of that. But I've noticed that my circle of joy has shrunk significantly. I was telling Tony that I got to a point to where I'm like, dude, I haven't been listening to music. I haven't been playing video games. I get up, I eat, I go to bed. Like I watch a little TV, I go to bed, lather, rinse, repeat, and that's not much. And I told him, I said, and I don't think I realized how much depression had sucked that much joy out of me. I think it did it while I was unaware. And all of a sudden I'm like, whoa, like I'm not doing anything really that I'm finding fun, or very rarely, and this isn't good. This is very bad. And, so it's like I for sure need to be aware of that and try to force myself back into doing these things again that I enjoy, so that I can kind of wrestle back some of that control from depression on that. Because it's so easy for it to slip away from you, and you don't notice it until you're like, oh, wait. Like, when's the last time I even listened to any music? You know, Tony and I were talking about music off show, and I was like, I forgot whose album I was talking about. Oh, it was like, you know, the last time I probably really listened to anything was when Killer Mike put out his Michael album, and that's been a couple months ago. I really have not sat down and really listened to much of anything. So since then, since him and I talked Monday, the other night, I, you know, when it was time to trim my beard and cut my hair, I always listened to music because I just put my iPad in there, put it on like the Slipknot channel, and just whatever, you know, hard rock stuff comes up, I just jam to. And although, you know, it's not always the best idea, you know, when you're cutting and trying to be delicate with how you're cutting and you're just like, yeah, Pantera's on, you know. So, but so I did that, and then I sat here the one night and I just put on, I don't remember what it was on Spotify, and I just listened to stuff for a while. And again, it was like by the end of the night, I'm singing along and all this, and I'm like, yeah, it's for sure felt good for the soul, you know. Like, remember when I mentioned that, like, I went to that beer fest and we were talking with people and all this, and I'm like, I miss this. I missed us just having these interactions with random people and, you know, and everything. And it was the same thing. And then there's a game that came out on PlayStation Plus that's a free download called Saints Row that Tony and I were both wanting to play, but we had not heard great things about. So we were like, yeah, we're not touching this. And then it was like, well, it's free. And I'm like, okay, well, let's throw it on, you know. So he played it and didn't care for it and was like, you should still do it. And in my head, I'm like, why would I? You know, like, I just told you I'm not enjoying things, and now you're wanting me to. So anyway, but I did. You know, which I think is a big step because I have a lot of games I haven't played because of the anxiety part of things. So just for me to just fire up the game fresh and go, you know, was a big deal. Uh-oh. Okay. All right, it's back. All right.
There you are.
So, anyway, so to pick up a game fresh.
It'll leave us on a cliffhanger.
Yeah, so to pick up a game fresh is a big deal, you know. So, you know, so I did. I played that a couple nights ago for a little while. I got to where, because the intent was for us to be like, hey, there's co-op in this game. We can jump online and play co-op. And I played it, and all the things that Tony said about it, basically, he's spot on about, which is the things that are frustrating are so frustrating that it makes you not want to play the game. Which is too bad because that's a franchise that I love dearly, but this was by far the worst entry. But we still may jump in and play some co-op and then, you know, dump all over it while we're playing, basically. But there's other games
Well,
we can...
at least that's entertaining.
Yeah. So, you know, there's other games we can play that, like Borderlands or something, that we can enjoy playing co-op in.
And still shit on it.
And we'll still shit on it, yeah. I mean, we like playing that one, but yeah. I mean, or at least, you know, we can always jump back into Grand Theft Auto and, you know,
There you go.
do the same thing. I mean, that's something we've always done. We used to just do it for giggles. Like, we wouldn't even really play the game. We're just driving around town like maniacs, causing all sorts of ruckus and just dicking around, basically, but not really doing anything of,
I thought
like...
that was the whole purpose of the game for the longest time. I didn't even know there was actual quests in that game.
Well, they found, I remember a couple, I don't remember if it's on this one or the one before, but they found that was basically what most people did the most in the game, is just screw around and get a huge wanted level and fight the police off and all this stuff. So, you know, but him and we'll get in a car, and I mean, we'll just get in ridiculous, like, chases from the cops, and just, the car, we'll take that car until it basically explodes. And
Right.
stuff like that. And it's just, we just do whatever is ridiculous. And it's just a blast, because we'd never obviously do this in real life, you know. But in the
Right.
game, it's like, well, there's no ramifications in this. Even if we get caught, oh well, you know, you respawn,
you
you're
show
down.
up, yes, it's like you respawn as
Yeah.
you bonded out. So, like,
Yeah, you have a little less money and ammo, basically. But other than that, you know, I'm fine. So, anyway, but I did that. But even though I didn't love that game, it felt good to start a new game and to play, you know, to play something. So it was, I very much was like, it's so funny how you hit a point with like depression that it steals from you, and then when you finally get to where you can do that stuff again, you're like, oh man, this was so good for my soul. Like, this is so what I needed. But it's so hard to continue, to keep doing. And it's like, you'd think once you get that hit that you would be back, like, oh yeah, that's what that felt like, like I'm back in that adrenaline rush and stuff, but it doesn't. It's just, there's just no adrenaline there, or serotonin, whatever it is that you bite into. It's just not, it's fleeting. It's just poof and it's gone. And then you're back to, 3 weeks from now, I'll probably play another game, like, so.
That's how I feel with a lot of my art stuff.
Yes.
I get in these creative moods where I'm like busting out artwork every other day, or at least a little bit. And then like, there'll be months between actual stuff that I put out.
Yeah.
And
Oh, I feel you. I'm in, like, mine are usually in like years. Like,
Yeah.
I've barely put any art out in, I don't know, the last 5 years. Hell, as long as you've known me, Heno, how many times have you really talked about me producing art?
You've done a few things,
Right? Yeah. Over all that
I mean,
time.
but that's really, it's
Yeah.
about, I mean,
Yeah.
that can jump to my head.
Yeah. Not
You
many,
know?
right? Yeah, exactly.
Not a lot. Not
Yeah.
a lot.
So, yeah.
But that's what your depression wants.
Exactly.
I mean, that's really,
Yep.
one of our owners, he's gotten a little older, and he used to come and just jaw our ear off all the time, with the us guys in the maintenance room, because he's got a background in telecommunications stuff, and he's kind of a, his son's a chemist of some sort, and so he's got that background, and he's just the kind of guy that's curious, so he's learning everything there is about stuff. And he came in, he popped into our shop, and he's like, he says, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm blowing all the epoxy dust off of me. He's like, oh, what are you working on? And so, I start telling him and this and that. And he looks at me, he says, I haven't been doing this. And I'm like, what's that? He's like, getting out and talking to people, and I need to do that. And I'm like, yeah. It something about depression came up, and he's like, yeah, I had depression when I was in my early 20s, and part of it was, he talked about how he got through it and stuff, and that's why I told him, I said, your depression wants you to sit at home and be alone.
100%. Yep.
It doesn't want you to come out and talk to people.
Yeah.
And he kind of looked at me funny, and it's like, your depression doesn't want you talking to me right now,
Yeah.
because it feels good.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Depression wants you to think it's a warm blanket, and it isn't. Like,
Yeah.
it's so
and
true.
That's I could tell that's what Bill had brought up. That's like, he cleared, because I seriously have been a little bit concerned about him, because I haven't seen him much.
Yeah.
And everyone's got their their life and the things that they do and whatever their interests are, but it was a little out of character, because he was always kind of connecting with people, and he's just like, I need to do this more often. I'm like, well, you're more than welcome. Come on out
Yeah,
and talk my ear off
right.
anytime.
I've gotten a lot better now if there's someone who especially like with the internet, like if I become like Twitter friends with somebody or whatever, one of the things I make sure I tell them is, I have a habit of disappearing. Like, I have a habit of, and I don't mean to ghost anybody. I don't mean to do this stuff. I don't even realize I'm doing it, but I have a habit of it. So if you see it or feel it, please say something, because 9 times out of 10, I don't even realize I'm doing it. It's just the way my brain will do it. And it isn't that I don't care about people or don't want to talk to anybody most of the time. I mean, I may not feel like talking to anyone, but it's not because I don't want to talk to anyone, like, so I, as we, talked beforehand, is like, rules, things change with me. And now that I'm seeing it and understand that, it's like, I communicate it to people, because it's like, if you don't hear from me for a length of time, it's probably not that you've done anything or there's any animosity. It's probably that I'm not talking to anyone, or I'm barely talking to anyone, that I've shrank back into myself because I go into self-preservation mode. And, once I explain that to people, they get it more. And I've had people, reach out to me and be like, hey, I haven't heard from you in like a week. Are you okay? Kind of a thing. And it's like, honestly, no, I'm not, because if I was, I wouldn't typically disappear like that. So, yeah, that's so right now it's trying to, as weird as it sounds so silly, but it's like forcing myself to have fun.
Yeah. Well, it's
You
like
know?
well, I know you and Tony were talking about. It's like schedule it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
Schedule it. Like I've been lucky. I hit an album from an artist that I listened to a long time ago, and then just kind of was like, yeah, they became the same thing over and over again. They released this completely different album, and I've been listening to music. I
Yeah.
haven't listened. I've been listening to a lot of books,
yeah,
and occasionally some podcasts, but I haven't listened to music a lot lately. And I have been so excited to, like, when I jump in the car, I put music on,
yeah,
and when I get to work, I'm going back and listening to books that I've already read,
yeah,
or listened to before. And that's exciting. Like when I walk in the house and I don't want to turn it off,
yeah.
I know I'm into it.
Yep.
And it's so true that you need. It doesn't matter if it's the same book or the same show or whatever it is, but if it brings something out of you, if it's eliciting an emotion,
Yeah.
then that's what I need.
Yeah.
Like I've this one series, I've read it so many times, and I got to this one section, and again I got all choked up because I love it, and that just means I'm not dead inside yet.
Right. Yeah. And listen, we all love the little engine
Right?
that could, Heno. I mean, it's fine. Yeah.
Hey,
did it!
Like,
Yeah.
who doesn't love a comeback story?
Right? On a completely different thing, it's like I read something today that said, I don't know if you're familiar with, there's a Sesame Street book. It's called The Monster at the End.
Yeah, I love that book. I
Right?
had it when I was a kid.
Exactly.
It's one of my favorite books ever, but it caused so much anxiety.
Yeah.
So much
I
anxiety.
love that book, and when people I've known have had kids, if I give a book, that's the first book I always give,
Yep.
because as a kid, I remember loving that book so much, and I still love Grover to this day, and I still think and apparently they did like an animated version of it.
What?
Yeah, it's something I don't have a link for it, but if you look for it, you should be able to find it pretty easily. I think it might have been on like
Definitely
HBO
gonna
or
have to
something
look.
like that.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to look it up.
Yeah, I read today. I think they said that it crossed like the 13 million sold, and I was like, good, because it was like I
How
said,
many of that was, the millennial aged people going and watching it for nostalgia? purposes?
seriously. Well, it's like that's why I said. I mean, when I read it, I was, we're talking, 40 years ago roughly, and it's
Mhm.
like, so, and I don't know when it came out, but it's like I know, so from at least my childhood forward, people have been buying it, and almost every time I mentioned it to somebody, at least one person in the room or group is like, "Oh my God, I love that book!" So it's like there you go. It's like that's So I know what you mean. It's kind of funny because even as an adult, every once in a while, when I gift it to someone, like if I'm buying it, say like a Target or some store like that or a bookstore, I'll
Right.
still thumb through it. And it's
Mhm.
funny how even as an adult, I still kind of smile at this child's book. And I don't know any other book from my childhood that would elicit the same reaction,
Right.
But I
That
absolutely
one for
love
me,
it.
yeah, like I always think of my mom and how animated she got when she would read it to us as kids and everything, like through the
cute.
whole story. And
Yeah.
so yeah, just flipping through it brings back those good memories.
Yeah.
And that.
I just remember the ending just blowing my mind, like what? And I've seen other kids read it and hit that point, and they're just like, like when they get to that ending, and it's such a cool reaction that I'm like, whoever wrote that, it was like that was such a brilliant book,
Right.
So yeah, but you're right, Heno. It's like even if you have to go back to your favorite albums, TV shows, whatever it is, to elicit that joy. And that's what I was finding when I was listening to music the other night. Was by the end of it, it's like, as much as I love listening to podcasts, because I absolutely love to learn, it's something that I hopefully will never grow tired of. I've had a thirst for knowledge since I was a little kid, and it was encouraged by my parents. Go read about it, go look it up, and that was obviously before it was so easy to go look it up. I had to wait until I could get to the library to go look it up. And
Man, that would drive me nuts.
oh yeah,
Like now thinking about it, like the access of internet and like
Yeah.
of language and knowledge, all of that, just the quickness that we have of it.
Mhm.
like younger me would be so astonished and baffled about that I didn't have
Yeah,
to wait
right?
3 days over the weekend till I got to school to go look it up. Like,
Yeah. Or like I was, and then even then when you get to the library, it's like unless someone wrote a book on it, you have to pull the encyclopedia
right?
and all that. It's like it's why I said it's So once Google happened, and well, not when it happened, but once it got refined a little bit to where it got really good, when it was
Right.
at its peak, and I was just like, oh my God, this is the greatest tool ever. And a strength becomes a weakness. And similar to my thirst for knowledge, a strength becomes a weakness in multiple ways. One, my thirst for knowledge has also led me to be a know-it-all, because literally I want to know it all.
Mhm.
I want to hear and know all sorts of things, but that also leads me to be the well actually guy, which doesn't work as well. But as much as I love podcasts for that reason, because almost all the podcasts I listen to are educational type ones now.
Right.
I don't listen to very many entertainment level ones. I listen to a couple, but not many. And but that just going back to music. Oh, when I was listening to Spotify, I was listening to my Discover Weekly. That's what it was, because that's something I forced myself to do also, because I very easily, like a lot of people, I very easily just fall back into the music that I'm comfortable with and have known for 30 years versus like, hey, there is other good music out there. Like maybe try to experience some of this, So I always try to listen to that. Plus I found some stuff that I really, really like that way, and I've also found some stuff that I absolutely do not care for.
That's something I haven't done in a while. Is I used to do like these YouTube rabbit holes for just new music.
Yeah.
And I'd come, and like not all of it was new by any means, but it was
Right.
new to me.
New to you, yeah.
And I'd come across some amazing stuff. And I still do occasionally, and then I have to like penguin pebble it out to all of my peoples.
Sure. Yeah.
But
yeah, that's the other thing. It is funny sometimes, like when you find something like when I listen to, like I said, I listened to Killer Mike's album Michael, and I love it so much that it's like there was an episode of oh God, I can't think of it. Joe Pera talks to you, and he discovers Baba O'Reilly for the first time. And he's telling everybody about, have you heard this song? And everyone's like, yeah, of course. How have you not heard it? It's like
Not
one of the
about
most
it.
classic songs ever, with one of the most iconic intros ever, right? Like everybody knows that song. And it's just funny because he's going to everyone. Like he gets up, he's telling the people at the church bulletin, like he's supposed to be reading the bulletin to the church, and he just starts going on and on about Baba O'Reilly, and and it just so much reminds me of what I was doing with Michael, where I was like, "Have you listened to this? Have you like you should hear this? It's really it's not just a normal it's not a brag rap album. He's telling these amazing stories in there, and they're heartbreaking, and and it is, and I'll still champion it, and it's a fantastic album. But also, it's like that's why I need to hear more music, because then I also know that the way my brain works is I hyperfixate, so which is understandable and fine, but also people are like, there's other music, like like there's other really good stuff out there to listen to.
it's either hyperfixate or you're going through everything and you're only listening to like the first 30 seconds. Yeah, I like that one. Next.
Yeah,
I like that one. Next.
Yeah. Yep. I just listen to the part, just get to the part that I really like and then move to the next song. I've done that in the
part that I heard in
past.
TikTok, and then
Yeah. It's funny, like I couldn't do that back before MP3s, when it was on a CD. It's like it's too much of a pain in the butt to go to a certain part of a song. Now I can just queue up that I can scrub to it on YouTube or whatever, and just play if there's a hook or something I really want to hear.
Right.
So it's
You hear like 10-hour versions of it, even if you want.
probably true. Yeah. Like, oh, can I just put this 5 seconds on loop? Okay, I'm good. 3 months later, I'm still listening to it. Like, hey, have you heard? No. All I've heard is this.
I've been listening to the same 10 seconds
Yep.
for 30 days.
That's right. It's cool, like on that too, is like having those AirPods has made a big difference in that too, because now when I go to the store, I can eliminate the frustrations of all the things that mess with my sensory issues in there. But also, I can basically soothe the beast by listening to music while I'm walking around the store. So all the other stuff that irritates me, like how people behave and everything, I get caught up in the music to where I'm walking around and tapping on the cart and, you know, like with the songs and stuff. And I don't even realize I really do get enveloped into that world again. And it's one of those where I was thinking the other day, I was like, you know, I might have to just stop listening to podcasts so that I force
Take a break?
myself to listen. Yeah, maybe not permanently, but just enough, like, to really force myself, because I only have X amount of listening time that I
Right.
devote. So it's like, well, I need to force music in there. Either that, or, you know, if I'm listening to something every night, do an you know, tonight I'm doing podcast, tomorrow music, you know, whatever. So
Yeah, schedule it out so that
yeah, it does. It feels so weird though to schedule your enjoyment
it
or
does,
fun.
but at the same time, if it brings some sort of peace to the chaos, then
Right.
if that's what works, that's what works.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, exactly. And so I think when Tony mentioned that to me the other day, I was like, you know, he's right. Like I hadn't thought about it, but he's right. Is, you know, so I think that's what I'm gonna try to do with different stuff, because, you know, like this week, 2 of the nights I'm doing podcasts, so I won't really do much else as far as, like, I probably won't really video game tonight or whatever. But tomorrow I don't have anything that I know of that I'm doing, so it's like, well, there's the opportunity is, you know, pick a stretch of time and do it. So yeah. So I think really sitting and thinking about that and recognizing how much my circle of joy has shrunk, I think really is kind of, as weird as it sounds, is my win for the week. Because anytime I think when you're a person who suffers from whatever it is, depression, anxiety, whatever, when you can actively go, whoa, this is going on right now, normally you don't until completely after.
right.
And even then, sometimes you don't see, you know, you can come out of your spiral and go right into life and not realize you just came out of a spiral.
right.
So yeah, I think that's where I'm at for the week.
I think it's time to bring back the what's your intention for the week moment, and you just kicked it off right there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
My-
you're right.
My intention is going to be to do some physical activity, because I know that's also good for my mental well-being.
I've heard. Yeah.
Rumor has it.
Yeah.
How about you? What's your intention?
My intention for the week's probably going to be trying to get some more housework done.
As in, like, house cleaning?
Yes,
Okay.
as in house cleaning.
So you're gonna check in with us and give us a list of
Yeah,
what you
I will.
accomplished.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. But well, because part of it is too is like I've been kind of like stubborn and defiant, because the last 2 times that the house got cleaned, it was done entirely by me, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not doing it this time. It's somebody else's turn. But I'm like, it's also your house, and you kind of have to clean it at
Yeah.
some point.
Yeah, at some
So,
point, yeah, you
but-
can't just leave everything everywhere. Yeah. I've been
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things. It's like we've been kind of putting it off, and I was like, I have been doing laundry and getting caught up on laundry, because I go and do that on my gaming nights and stuff. So
Mm.
we'll play Fortnite and change out laundry. So
Nice. Yeah. It's a good
that's
way
when I've
to
been getting my
distract.
music time into, because we'll swap it up. Like there's some nights where we just listen to like random hip hop and comedy routines, and then other nights where it's like all alternative rock. Another night will be butt rock and all sorts of stuff. So like, but it's been good. It's like branching out musical stuff, touching on stuff that I used to listen to all the time,
Right.
and
You
then
know,
still getting to kill people at the same time. It's fun.
that's something I actually, you mentioned that, and that was something I actually hadn't thought about too, is that is where I used to get most of my music listening in, because most games I don't need to hear whatever's going dialogue, because I can turn on closed captioning on most of it, or I just don't. There's no, like, I play like Madden quite a bit. I don't need to
Right.
hear the commentary in the game, because after a few times of playing it, you're good with ever hearing the commentary again,
Yeah.
because it's the same stuff,
It's repetitive. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And I don't need it. Like I can watch the game and time the snap of the ball and everything. So
right.
I think there's that too. By not playing games, I'm also cut out music
Your
time at
so,
the
like,
same
those things
time.
that you do at the same time.
Yeah. So maybe that's a big key in it too, is by getting more games, and maybe I'll get more music in my life too. Maybe I won't feel like I need to cut podcasts back as much then, who knows. So yeah.
I think that's where I struggled with books, because I always feel bad that I haven't like picked up a book in a while.
yeah, me too.
But it's also because I am so used to doing two things at once. I'm either listening to music and doing art or watching TV and doing art. If I'm just sitting there reading a book, I will fall asleep so quick because I'm only doing the one thing. I'm not stimulating enough things.
Yeah.
So I've fallen back on it, and Sean was like, well, why don't you just like listen to audiobooks then? I'm like, yeah, because I conditioned myself to fall asleep to audiobooks when I was a kid because I got to a point where my parents were like, we're not reading you stories to bed anymore. So I just got tapes and audiobooks.
Well, somebody else would read them to you.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. That works.
So yeah, so I can't really do audiobooks that way unless if like I'm on a car trip where like but the car trip has my focus, but audio I can listen to without falling asleep or anything because I'm doing two different things. But yeah, just sitting there trying to listen to an audiobook,
Oh,
nope.
I can't do that.
Yeah. See,
No, I absolutely need to be doing something.
See, my problem is that's how I used to read. Was like when I would read, I used to have music going and whatever. I can't do it now. I just don't have that focus anymore. So if I read, I need it like quiet, maybe a fan going or something like that. But otherwise, I need it to be completely quiet, or I will not retain anything. So it's like for me, audiobooks. I don't know. I still have that old school block too. That
Well, and like I would love to. I love holding a book and actually
Yeah,
reading a book. I
exactly.
was like, but I can't draw pictures while holding a book.
Well, you
at the same
can. I mean, I wouldn't do it if you're like getting them from the library, but
Well, yeah,
they
yeah.
don't so much look fondly on drawing in their books. But if it's your book, absolutely, get
Right,
after it.
right.
Yeah, I've seen people do it,
Right.
So
Absolutely. But yeah, that's my thing. I was like, I feel bad, but at the same time, I'm like, yeah, but I also know where that's one of my struggles, my difficulties, my weaknesses, because I can't just sit there. Like I have trained myself to do multiple things at once. When I was a kid, I would go through books like candy.
yeah, me too.
And now I'm like, I barely pick one up.
Yeah, I think last
You need
year
to
I read one
retrain.
book. Yeah, I think I read.
I do really read a
Odd
lot
book
of
last
other
year.
stuff though.
Yeah, I do too. I read all sorts of things that are like, again,
Info
going for the
thingies and-
thirst for
yeah.
knowledge stuff, where I'm like, ooh, this is
Yeah.
interesting. And then like 3 hours later, I'm still reading about it. I just don't
Right.
sit down and read a cover to cover book anymore. I mean, I've actually sat and read like scientific studies on something where, it's like, I don't read the whole thing, but I've read parts of it. And it's like, how can you sit and read this, but you can't sit and read something for fun anymore? This is very
Right.
weird.
Well, and then my other struggle with it is too, is like I have a hard time putting the book down. Like if I get into it,
Oh, yeah.
we're not going to sleep. We're finishing this until we
Yeah.
know the end.
All right, so I got the solution for you with audiobooks is you just need to find somebody on like Fiverr or something that will just like scream the book at you. That way it's really hard to go to sleep because or maybe not the whole book, but just occasionally they'll scream a paragraph. That way it'll wake you back up
You wake you up.
and you're right back
Like, are
into
you
it.
Every time there's a new chapter, it screams out the chapter
Yeah.
title.
Oh God, what? Okay, I'm back in. All right, let's go.
Oh, that's good.
But I figure I was like, I have a friend who's in jail and she's been reading a lot of books lately, and I'm like, okay,
Read 'em
she
with
doesn't
her.
have an excuse. I was like, but what if I do? I was like, okay, for every 3 books she reads, I read 1. Like just trying to keep something there. One is stimulation for her, and it's
And
not a
then
bad
you can
thing.
talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to do that with a friend of mine when he was
Yeah.
in jail. We were reading the same books at the same time, so that we could talk about what we just read.
That's actually a good idea.
That is a good
That's
idea,
just a
yeah.
good idea.
Yeah.
And then you're because you tend to end up getting into the same conversations over and over again because there's
Mhm.
not a whole lot of interesting new things happening to that person,
Right.
and you don't necessarily want to always be talking about your own stuff, and so it gives you something that's separate from both.
Yeah.
And it's an escape.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's a good idea. All right.
Prison.
Well-
Prison book club.
We made a show.
Yeah, we sure did. Yeah, I don't think we need to go into. So yeah, save that topic for
I will.
another
I
time
like
though,
it.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
I'll have to
All right.
listen to it.
Oh no, I didn't pull up my
Your list?
my scripts. Yeah. Oh no, my writers have failed me. That's
They're
not
on
the right-
strike. Oh wait, no, they just
Nope,
looked at
nope, not anymore. Yeah. I saw something that I thought was absolute. Like, I always talk about being kind and doing good things. I love the fact that Drew Carey absolutely offered. He paid for anyone in the guild that went to like a Big Boy or there was another restaurant out there. He bought their food all through the strike. From the beginning all the way to literally the midnight when it ended. Up until that point, if the place was open, you could still go get food on him at 11:30 that night if you wanted to. And I think that was such a great move of solidarity with, those writers and stuff that were out there trying to get something, and for 5 months to pick up everybody's food. It's like, that also tells you how disgustingly rich he is. But still, good guy move, I think, to
We
do
had a
that.
cool lady that was like that. The Blackfoot Hound down here, they're unfortunately not a no-kill shelter. And they've been overran with dogs for months and months, and they said that they had like 12 of them that were going to be euthanized by the end of the week. And I think they ended up getting enough adopted out through that, just reaching out through people and people sharing and everything, and people going as far as to offer the transport and adoption price coverage and everything if people, just to get them in a place where they're not going to be euthanized or anything. So
Awesome.
I was like, that's really cool that they were able to spread that out enough that they got enough dogs adopted out that they didn't have to euthanize any of them.
Yeah,
So,
that's awesome. I love hearing stuff like that because I've seen there's different accounts that I follow where they'll go on a thing where they'll like tweet out like 12 or 15 dogs, and it's like, please help, because otherwise these are going to, gonna be
I know that
euthanized
a
and...
few of them were all Malamute or Huskies, so they went to a few specific rescues
Oh, cool.
for those ones and stuff. So I was like, that makes me happy that
Yeah.
people totally reached out to.
Whoa.
Is it time for? Are you telling us it's done?
Was
We're
that the
done?
alarm? Yeah. It's the final buzzer.
No, he didn't even know he snuck up on us.
Jeez. All right. Man. Well, if you want to reach out to us, you can find our website at thecrazylifepodcast.weebly.com. You can email us if you'd like to at thecrazylifepodcast@outlook.com. You can find this show on Twitter at wow, I just lost my spot. The Crazy Life podcast at the Crazy Life Podcast. Jeez, I don't know. I'm all over the place right now.
You mean the X, not Twitter?
Yeah, X, whatever. I just can't with that.
I can't either.
Been on that site like 15 years. I can't just start calling. It's like when a business changes the name in your town and you still refer to something it hasn't been since like the 80s. It's like, sorry, that's still this to me. Yeah, you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/group/crazylifepodcast. Henno, how about you?
I'm pretty much hanging out on Instagram and Facebook these days. Look up Henno Heicher. You will find me sharing my dogs and flowers and occasional funny, goofy things about getting old and complaining about all the lights on in the house memes.
Oh boy, you become that guy, huh?
Yep.
All right.
You should hear when he complains about the neighbors. It's great.
Because they're on his yard all the time? No.
No, it's because they don't take care of their yard.
Yeah, I know. Just picturing Henno out there just screaming at him. All right. How about Kiki? Do you want to give your information or no? Or?
I'm on Facebook typically under Kiki Hake, and then I'm on Instagram. Occasionally I post art updates and such. And that is at Kiki Cubbit.
Cool. All right. Oh, yeah, I guess I didn't give mine either. You can find me on whatever social media, typically at Stunami. You can find my other podcast at Salty Language, at Salty_Language. The name of the show is Salty Language. And it's me and my best friend just talking about pop culture stuff. Like this last week, we talked about Crumble Cookies, Rick and Morty, the new voices, a blood drive truck, which can only be described.
That story was hilarious.
You have to find our Instagram to see a picture of this glorious truck that we talked about. But yeah, so if you're into any of that stuff, please give us a listen. Show's not safe for work, so be careful with that. And this show is part of the Tangentbound Network, which can be found at tangentboundnetwork.com. So please go check out the other shows there. And other than that, I think as usual, please reach out if you need help, or please talk to somebody. And also please check on your friends, especially if it's people you haven't talked to in a while. Just a good excuse to reach out and reconnect with folks. And then, as I said a few minutes ago, when you can be kind, please be kind. Whether it's in conversations or helping people, at the store or wherever you can help, please do so. It doesn't always have to be money or anything really time-consuming. Sometimes just a little, holding a door for somebody or getting something off a shelf or whatever can just be a big deal to somebody. So, yeah, try to be kind when you can. And, yeah, I think with that, Heno, you want to take us out of here?
Yep. Always remember to live your omelet. Don't worry about yesterday's pizza.